And we're live today. It's Monday, a special date for Champ Chat this week. This week we have two-time world champion Daniel Joynes joining us. Daniel, say hello to everybody.
Evening, everyone who's watching this. Excuse my appearance. I just came back from the gym, testing out this thing.
All right. So you see, even Heroclix players do manage to get in shape every so often, guys. So I kind of want to start from your beginnings. A lot of people like to hear where we all started when we started playing Heroclix and how we got into competitive play. So yourself, when did you start playing the game, and when did you start getting into the competitive game?
Let's see, when did I start? I was I can't remember the year exactly, but I know I was in college, I think, and I used to read a web comic called Sluggy Freelance pretty regularly, and the artist was really into Heroclix, and he would draw these pictures of things like Thor carrying Spider-Man or all the things that he found ridiculous in the game, and I decided to try it out, and I can remember that I think Mutant Mayhem was the set that had just come out, so I think it might have been '02, or was it earlier than that? It's really hard to remember. It wasn't my freshman year, and that was '01. Probably 2002 or 2003. Whenever that set came out, that's when I started.
Mutant Mayhem was 2004.
Then 2004. Yeah, I started playing then, and started playing at Penn State, still in college, and took me a little while to learn the rules. Took me a while to win a tournament, and I don't know, I just fell in love with the game. I'd always liked comics, but I wasn't really a super comic reader, but I liked the heroes, and I liked the strategy aspect of it. It seemed fun, so I just kept playing it, and I don't know, I kept playing it, and I just kept getting a little better, and then I would see people go to conventions, and the first time that I could finally afford it, I decided I would go out to a convention and try my luck. I think the first convention I ever went to was a Wizard World, and that was when WizKids still went to one of the Wizard Worlds, and did not do so good. Qualified, might have made top 32, enough to get my name mentioned on WizKids, but like way down there. Well, not WizKids, and then it was it Heroclix, the really old website before they went under. It was enough to have an article mentioned on there, and that was about it. And then when I graduated college the second time and got a better job, I could afford to go out to Indianapolis. I decided that I would try my luck at Gen Con. And then the first year, I qualified for Worlds and then lost pretty hard in the Constructed. I was trying to do a team with, if I remember, I was trying to do something with Dark Flash or Black Flash. I don't know, he could poison speedsters and do all sorts of stuff, and I was trying to do something with him, and it didn't work. And but I did win a brick of web Spider-Man, so that was fun.
That's awesome.
And then the next year I went to Gen Con was actually the first time I won, and I was as surprised as anyone, honestly.
It's actually one of the earliest video recorded matches that I've actually been able to find, because I went back in time to trying to find, if anybody's managed to get old matches on YouTube. And
fun fact, the current world champ was the one who recorded it.
Oh, really?
Yeah, Patrick actually recorded that. I didn't realize that till way after the fact.
Wow. Small. This whole competitive scene is a very small world. So that metagame was when Metron was really running rampant in that time, right?
Yeah, I kind of threw together my team. I hear people saying stories of how they play tested for months, but John Rowe won Origins with the Metron Kids Zoom team. I looked at that and I said, that's a cool team, but I think Nightcrawler's better, so I'm going to do that. And so I threw him on, and then I play tested a little bit the night before against some friends. I think I had built 3 teams. There was that team, there was some Thunderbolts team, and there was some other team I don't even remember. And I ended up some rock, paper, scissors, where one team would beat the other team, would beat the other team, would beat the Metron team. And I played all 3 of those teams against a couple of teams that my buddies made, and they told me just go with the Metron team, and it worked.
Yeah. Obviously, we're talking to you, right?
It got. It was interesting. It was interesting. It's why we have a Mr. Sinister, and I have a big trophy on my wall of his Paintmaster that they gave me.
That's actually really awesome. The Mr. Sinister was of the Champ figures, the last one I managed to acquire, and I only got it, I think, last week. So, yeah.
I just sold my whole set of Chaos Wars, but I told him he would get my Mr. Sinister over my cold dead body. So one piece I held on to.
Yeah. I can imagine a figure like that holds a lot of sentimental value.
I don't care if the damn thing's worth a nickel. I'm going to hold on to it.
Exactly. You made that. That's the whole wonder of it. And the design process of that. What were you thinking going in making that Mr. Sinister? Did you want to make like a kind of a figure who stood alone, or did you want to make it stand out, or were you going for comic accuracy with your figure?
I went for cartoon accuracy, actually, I think. I was a big fan of the X-Men cartoon in the 90s, and Mr. Sinister was always on there, and he was always doing sinister things, and he stuck with me. I don't know why. And then the reason he got made is that there was a venue I used to go to. They used to run every year at the end of the year. Whatever year it was, that's the points, and you could do a thing. And I was trying to figure out something I could do for that, and I was trying to build a Horseman of Apocalypse. And I sat there and I could almost do it, but then I was like, oh, Mr. Sinister is like, wow, he's terrible. I was like, well, if I ever win Worlds, I'll make him. And there's a throwaway comment in my head that I thought would never happen, and then it happened.
Right.
But when I designed him, I wanted to do basically, I wanted to make him like the Sinister I knew from the cartoons, which is why basically I think 4 of his power names are all just basically quotes from that cartoon. The future belongs to superior mutants. None of you are necessary. I think I Am the Sistine Chapel of Evolution was something I found online, and a few other ones were suggested to me by a buddy of mine. The only thing I wanted to do is I wanted him to be sort of a background manipulator, but be as tough as he deserved, because the one thing that he always did in the comics was, unless Cyclops was shooting him, which is apparently, from what I've heard, is something that the TV show invented. It never really was a thing in the comics. So, but if Cyclops wasn't shooting him, he was just laughing at whatever you could throw at him. So I wanted him to be tough, and I wanted him to have a decent regeneration. And I remember specifically saying when I did the design thing, I want him to have this regeneration. I want it to be cool, but I don't want it to be completely free action. I don't remember what I did for it. It's been so long. I don't remember if I made it free action. I made it free action, but you subtracted more. I said completely free action regeneration is just too strong. It wouldn't be good for the game. I don't want to do that. And then they went and did it in the very next set with Dracula. So.
Of course.
So yeah, but I was pretty happy with the way he came out. I've played him a couple of times. A lot of people, I think out of the 2 I've made, he's definitely people's favorites. He's the one I've gotten the most feedback on it. Usually the feedback is like, well, it's the one where you're not most looking like a douchebag by being on the sculpt. But backhanded compliments are compliments, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's pretty fun. And here, I may as well. This has really never seen the light of day before, but let me take you for a walk here. This is the only thing I keep upstairs for Heroclix. This is what WizKids gave me. I don't know if you can see it, but this is actually a paint master, a first mold, a master paint, and then an actual finished Mr. Sinister along with his card.
Wow. Did they send you in the case as well, or did they send you the figures?
They actually handed me that at the Gen Con I went to when I defended my world title. They said, "Oh, hey Dan, come here. We want to have something for you," and they gave me that, and that was awesome.
That's actually cool.
That's priceless. I'll never get rid of that, even if I gave up on this game and do whatever. But that's pretty awesome. That's why it's up on my wall, and all the other Heroclix are in the basement.
Absolutely. And to the point where you're talking about with regards to his regenerating stuff and his being invulnerable, I think one of the issues was prior to that cartoon, even in the comic book, Mr. Sinister was always gone before the shooting happened. So it's really hard to say what happens when Mr. Sinister how he would react to Cyclops, because he would be generally gone in the comic. But I actually think that in some comics later on, he started doing that kind of T-1000 hole in his chest sealing up thing.
I had an image straight up of when I was looking to see if Cyclops thing. There's an image online I found where he had half of his body just blown apart, and he's literally hanging on by a thread, and he's laughing at Cyclops, saying something like, "Oh, you didn't know that you were going against Sinister," the whole '90s thing where the name would be in big and bold and super. So I saw that, and I was like, all right, he deserves Impervious, because if Wolverine gets it, Christ, he'll get it.
Yeah, absolutely. So the next year you said you went to Gen Con. How'd you do the following year?
Terrible, terrible. Worst title defense. 0 points, 0 wins.
Ouch.
It was.
Um,
I built a team of the 150 point Fast Forces Superman with the full gauntlet and two Scarlet Witches, and I basically built that team to deal with Sentry Void, and then no one played Sentry Void,
yeah.
and I could not deal with Barrier. I could not deal with any sort of way that they could stop Superman from doing Superman things, and because it didn't work. So it just the first team I went up against was a scientist team with a whole bunch of barrier and that movie Red Skull who could put tokens on him, and he beat me pretty hard. I couldn't do a damn thing. And then the second team was a team with like a ton of mystics, and I could never land on the soul gems. So as soon as I was going to hit a mystic, I was going to be sitting there and just get fried. And that's what happened. So
Yep.
0 wins, 0 points, best title defense ever.
But of course, the next year you came in roaring back, and this this was the year of the Ghost Rider team base year, I like to call it, because if you weren't playing the team base, you were playing Ghost Rider or something that beat Ghost Rider.
Yeah, it was either Shuma. It was Shuma or a Ghost Rider. I don't think there were really any team. There were very few team bases. I remember I was surprised. I only saw I think one Justice League. A lot more Shumas. Because
I,
Shuma Mole Man was definitely a thing at the time.
I think the beating they took in Nationals scared everybody away from using them. Because I think it was
That
Nationals that kind of made everybody aware of what the Ghost Rider with the belt was fully capable of.
yeah, it was the
Uh,
year that Ross won and never let anyone forget.
yeah. So, what was that? What was that tournament like in comparison to the first one? With
Um,
the build and getting there.
well, that was I did a lot more playtesting that year because I realized that the reason I not done so well the previous year was lack of playtesting. I was sunk. Excuse me. And so I did a lot more play testing with it. I play tested it against a whole bunch of different builds, and there were some things that it didn't do well against in play testing, like map choice could screw it over depending on the map. And there were a couple of builds that a friend of mine had that I don't even remember anymore. Were doing well, but I couldn't find anything that I liked better that gave me more options. Plus, even when you lose with it, you figure out some kind of like little trick that you can do, like. One trick that I developed and all that was something that I actually did in the finals, where if someone's playing their barrier piece with like the bike is their first barrier piece, and then Scarlet Witch is their second barrier piece. Well, let's mind control the bike to punch Scarlet Witch, and now nobody has barrier. Also, you're off prop.
Yeah.
So it
Yeah.
worked. It worked. It worked really well. It confused the hell out of one of my opponents, who I actually missed the mind control, which stunk, and then his Ghost Rider came all the way down, and then I don't know, double power action, and then he got Batmite down, but missed the Batmite attack, and then Heroes attacked and crit missed, and that's the only reason I won.
Oh.
Yeah,
Yeah. That was a if I could say anything about that particular meta, it was a violent meta game.
yeah, it was
Like things got hit hard, and if you missed, it's because you missed big.
yeah, it was
So
it was,
now,
it's a much more hostile reaction that I got that year. It
yeah.
was a, it
Well,
was it was a lot of angry responses.
well, you played within the game, and then you had some really good and awesome Super Sense rolls on on that final game, and like it's on video. I watched that go down, and I've been on both ends of the high rolls. You feel good when it happens, but you also, to a degree, feel bad for your opponent. Like this just happened to you, and this could have all gone differently for you, right? So
Yeah, people to this day still accuse me of using loaded dice. The dice weren't loaded. The proof is in the video. If you ever see a loaded die, that loaded die is not balanced by its own definition. And if you spin the die, it will not spin on its axis. It'll wobble. And because they caught somebody earlier in that con using loaded dice, as soon as I rolled the third Super Sense roll, I knew that was not supposed to. Like I told you, that wasn't supposed to happen.
yeah,
Brother Voodoo was supposed to die. He was there to make Ghost Rider do that and not go after my Ghost Rider, because he couldn't mind control Ghost Rider because of the Battle Fury. So he was just going to he did his one thing. He made the barrier and the prob, and the products go away. And now I wanted him to die. And then he rolled 3 senses roll, and ultimately he ended up doing nothing really. Even though he made all those super senses rolls, it just made him burn his heroes tokens.
Yeah.
But yeah, then I spun the die on video because I knew people would sit there and say it's loaded. But people still say it's loaded. I got somebody who said that a vote for me when they voted for a vote for any of my figures to be considered one of the best made figures was a vote for loaded Red Lantern die. But yeah, whatever. I don't care anymore. I'm tired defending it. Nobody listens anyway. Everyone's assumes they're right, and I'm just this big a-hole.
Yeah.
So
I,
it was frustrating. The second win was not as fun as the first. The community kind of, sad to say, kind of took a dump on it and ruined it for me. I'm sorry. That's the truth.
I would never actually accuse a champion of that unless they fully admitted it themselves, to be brutally honest. And I guess
I
it's
didn't do myself no favors last year. I made a mistake in team building, and people were like, "Oh, but he's a cheater." No, I mean, so.
yeah. I noticed it. I was doing an update on a video the day, like the morning of when they showed all the teams, and I was like, oh, I wonder if somebody caught this or if this was an oversight by Daniel. Like
It's an oversight. It was. I showed that team to Brian Rupp the night before because he wanted to know what I was going to play, and I showed it to him. And I just told him what the bigger strategy was. He's like, "Oh, that might work." So I mean, he didn't catch it either. It was just an
yeah.
oversight. I mean, I've used that Loki 1,000 times. I don't use him for duo. I use him to be a cheapy transporter piece and
Yeah.
a prob when he pushes. So, and when he pushes, he ends up on a really good click from Butcher. If it was legal to assign him, where he had penetrating poison and a few other things. But yeah, that's what happens. And I didn't. That last year was a rough con. I went with some friends who really wanted to get con LEs, and I got like no sleep, and my brain was completely short-circuiting. In Team Worlds, I did so many boneheaded moves because I could not think.
Yeah.
So it was a bad year.
Sleep is important for these big things. I even noticed
It, it
like
is.
Nationals was a heck of a bear of a tournament, and like I remember by the end of it, because Amber had to try in all four of the grinders to finally get into the day two. She was worn out, and then the next day she was just absolutely frazzled. And then I had a bad matchup, so we were done pretty early the next day. So
I got luck. I remember I got lucky when the one time I had to play in the grinders. I won my first one because of crazy good luck. And a
yeah,
guy playing in the final game, guy playing Maelstrom. I killed his support and just ran for 20 minutes, and then he KO'd my support, and I knocked him onto his last click, and then he had to clear, and then I managed to roll just high enough to KO him, and he missed his impervious roll because that Maelstrom on his last click was scary.
yeah. So when you'd won the second time in Worlds, you'd initially thought you were going to be making Dexstar, and
Yep.
then changed to Shriek.
Yes, and then I had to do it quietly because I wasn't allowed to say anything because I was under NDA.
Okay, so by then you've already signed it. What brought about the change? Did WizKid say, "Look, we're making Dexstar"? No, or
Um, well, no, they didn't. Uh, I'm trying to think. I'm technically still under the NDA. Is it
okay,
two?
so
So so they didn't tell me no. I changed my mind. I think I
okay,
can say that. I
yeah,
wanted the reason I chose Dexstar is when I look at it bringing in a piece, I want to do something that really, really needs a remake or is something brand new, and it has to be something that I like or makes me laugh. So Mr. Sinister got made because he was needed a remake really bad, and I love the '90s X-Men cartoons. Dexstar was going to get made because he was not in clicks and he was a cat, and it made me laugh. And then when they said they made him, and by the way, I'm glad they did because I don't think I would have made a dial nearly as good as the one they did.
yeah,
Theirs one it's hell on wheels. Excuse me. So they said they were gonna do it, and I thought, then they're gonna steal the thunder. It's gonna be dumb, and they had told me when it was gonna come out, because they didn't tell me what set or would it be. They just said wouldn't be out till November, with Flash, and I was like, it's gonna be out after Gen Con. I don't want that. So my brother and I used to love Maximum Carnage. I still have the comic up in my attic right now, sitting on my bookshelf, and we played the Super Nintendo game all the time. It was like our favorite thing.
I love it.
So I figured, And Shriek had just come in second in the fan vote, so I asked, "Are you guys making a Shriek?" And they said no. I said, "Well, then that's what I'm doing."
Cool.
So that's how Shriek came about. And I would have said, I asked if I could say something, but they said no. I wanted to say, I'm changing, but it was I was strictly under the NDA at that point. Couldn't say anything about the design process.
Okay. I mean, Shriek is a cool character, and it wouldn't have been one that I would have thought to make. And she definitely, like you said, Maximum Carnage. My brain instantly went to that comic series and the video game as well, because every time I hear Green Jello now, that game comes to mind.
I definitely took all the lessons I learned from Mr. Sinister and did it to her. I really, because if you look at Mr. Sinister, I clearly went crazy with power because he's got a power on every click, on every slot. So yeah, I went a little. I'll be the first to admit I went a little drunk with power, and his end dial really suffers because of it. Because his end dial has to tank to make him not be 300 or 400 points.
Right.
So I really didn't want to do that with Shriek, especially because the dial design had evolved at that point, where tanking, even when I made it, tanking dials were a thing of the past. And I was so glad that nobody said his dial is terrible because he tanks at the end. That was something I was really afraid of. But with Shriek, I didn't want to do that. I wanted her to be more compact. And she didn't deserve to be like 300, 400 points. I didn't want to make some kind of monster. And I definitely had a point value in mind because I sat there and I did the math. I was like, all right, these guys plus the ATA equals this, which means she has to equal this because the AT is this many points. Boom. That's why her and all her buddies are 600 points on the nose because I wanted them to be.
That's a lot of forethought. I never would have given anybody credit for doing it. I actually hadn't even thought about putting the Maximum Carnage keyword together. I mean, I guess you not include Deathlock in that math because
no.
Yeah.
No. Only the villains.
Yeah. Okay.
People kept saying, "Oh, she's great to play with Deathlock," and it's like, well, she's not supposed to, but okay.
And it's funny when you mention that back-end tanking is really a bad thing because back in the day that used to be the mark of a character is easy to heal, right? Every heal had 7 or 8 attack.
Yeah, before Seth Johnson took over, I think he was the one who started the back-end swing where a hero can fight just as well, basically through all parts of their dial. I mean, we also got the 8-9-17-2 era, which was a sad era, but he started doing that, and that's something that stuck around, which I'm glad. It's basically, no figures really out of it anymore.
Yeah, absolutely. So with all that being done, you've won the 2 worlds. What have you been up to of late with regards to competitive play? Do you play in Rocks on a regular basis, or?
I do not, just because there was only one Rock ever held in Philadelphia, and the store that held it they've killed Heroclix play. They had a terrible reputation in the area for ripping off customers and being just kind of ignorant in general. And the Rock did not do well for them because they tried to go too ambitious. And ever since then, no other place has done it. So I don't generally travel for the Rocks just because, this thing behind me is the house that I just bought, so no money for that. And then I got married too, so. And we're having big boy conversations about things like kids and 401ks and all those fun things. So competitive play takes a little bit of a back seat. It's actually kind of up in the air if I'm even going to make it to Origins this year. I had planned to go, but something has come up, and I may not be making it to any convention. If I don't go out this year, I probably won't be back out for about 5 or 6 years because it is a goal of me and my wife to have her pregnant by the end of the year. And once a baby comes out, that's the end of that.
Yeah.
Sadly got more. Well, not sadly. It's more important things to do.
Yeah, it's weird because more of my competitive play has come since my twins have been born, but a lot of people have been helping us out with regards to watching our kids and things like that. So I got lucky in that sense where it was the later kids that actually got me going, and it was like, okay, let's actually try this before they become teenagers and just trash the place.
Well, hopefully once my kids are 5 or 6 and can understand numbers and stuff, maybe I'll get them. I'm hoping I'll still play locally. Philadelphia is lucky in that we have a pretty good selection of places to play. I mean, if I was to go on the WizKids event system right now, I'd see at least 6 or 7 venues within driving distance that I could all make it to.
Which is actually a very reasonable number when it comes down to it. Even in, I think, the Greater Toronto area, we're sitting at about 4 or 5, and that's within 4 or 5 cities of the area. So like I think furthest drive from the furthest point would be about an hour drive. And I know I have to motor an hour and a half bus ride because I haven't been able to get my hands on a car yet.
I used to be 10 minutes from a venue that ran events when I lived in my apartment, and that was great. But we moved up here, and it's about I think about 30 minutes at most to the closest venue that I play at on Thursdays.
So,
And even then, it's getting sporadic now because I get trying to do more things at work and all that. So, so competitive play nowadays, really, it's just basically I don't. The only exposure I really have with the Rocks is that I'm on the quarry, and basically, I don't. If anyone listens to the quarry, I talk way too much, in my opinion. I sit there and I just vomit facts, and I try to listen to myself afterwards, and I'm sitting there and honestly, I go like this. What? I sit there and I put myself to sleep. So if anyone else gets entertained, I really hope you are, because I listen to myself talk and I go to sleep. But and hopefully it's interesting. I get to see what's being played out in the Rocks and see what strategies are, and looking at the teams and analyzing them, trying to figure out someone's strategies. It's hit or miss sometimes. People have criticized us as like, you got my team totally wrong, but sometimes they tell us you got it completely right. But we do what we can. Hopefully someone finds it entertaining at least.
So those are unfamiliar. There's a podcast called The Quarry, which Daniel's on, and he does this with
Edward Shelton and Jerry.
Jerry, yes.
I want to call him Jerry Damage because that's his realm's name, but I don't think that's his real last name.
I believe his real last name is Jerry Cook. Don't quote me on that one though.
That sounds about right.
Yeah,
I've known in Jerry's defense, I've known Edward a lot longer than I've known him.
Yeah.
I think Edward said I was a top guest on his previous podcast, starting over before this.
Yeah. So I do have to ask, how did you come across the Quarry? Did they approach you, or?
Edward was always going to run it, and he and I have ever since my first world title. He contacted me after I won, said, "Hey, I'd really like to do an interview with you and pick your brain." And we kept up a correspondence. We talked for years. He's I consider him a really good friend. If you live in Missouri, I'd play against him more if he didn't live in Missouri. But yeah, he and I we talk tech and things along that nature. And he said, "Hey, I have a podcast coming on, and I know you and I work well on the thing. We've been on a ton of podcasts. I'd really like you to come on it with me." So I said, "Sure, why not? It sounds like it'd be fun." I mean, the way I've always looked at it is basically I just do it because it's fun, and if someone gets something out of it, then cool. But I sit there and enjoy just having a conversation about nothing. Ultimately, it's about teams and tech and where we think the meta is going to go. And sometimes we do set analysis. We did try to do an analysis of Flash, but Edward's computer ate it.
That's always the worst, is to lose something that good to computer error.
All right. Here we're going to do a walk and talk as I get more water.
As
my Philly accent comes through.
That's all right. It's that phrase of where the error is human. To really screw up, you need a computer. And I can't tell you how many times we've lost games and videos and anything else to computer issues. So I can understand where that comes from.
That was disappointing because we talked for like 2 hours.
Yeah. Set review is I've listened to quite a few podcasts do them, and set reviews end up being really lengthy because a lot of the players are really the people doing the podcast are excited for the figures, and then they'll do their initial review of it, and it's always I like listening to the set release podcasts myself. So whenever I listen to all the Clicks podcasts at this point. So I'm up on Dial H for Heroclix, 2 Clicks from KO. I believe Push to Regen stopped a little while ago. And there was another one that the Realms was also running. But I also
Clickscast. I was on that once, I think.
Yeah. And then of course whenever you guys update the Quarry, I'm listening to it on the bus on the way to work. So
we're planning on recording tomorrow. This is getting us through snowstorm up in Philly, so I'll definitely be sitting at home getting ready to record.
Yeah.
Hopefully I can less feedback now that I have these things.
Yeah.
Because I know on the Quarry, all the time you hear sounds like someone's scratching their microphone. That's me walking around with this thing. Sorry.
Oh. He does a pretty reasonable job of editing. I don't hear a whole lot of background noise.
I hear everyone, and I know it's me, and it drives me nuts.
That's awareness of it though. But I do have to say I personally do enjoy analysis like yours when you are on the quarry. So I personally don't think you're talking too much. But also one of my favorite interviews not too long ago was with Adam Friedman, and he also was really good and analytical with regards to how he played in WizKids Open recently, recently
If
from the time I talked to him. So
if you ever want an insane interview, get in touch with Alex Avila.
you know,
That kid's a hoot.
I often have a little trouble getting in touch with a lot of the guys from Rubicon. I feel like they're dodging me specifically, or just everybody but Glass Cabinet. um, but I am going to take it now to fan questions. You
All
can
right.
tell I'm a computer programmer the fact that I use the phrase user array. Um, and the first one I got here is a prediction question. What do you think with the coming, with what we know right now, with regards to Trinity War, which is pretty much everything at this point? There's very few surprises left. Maybe one or two of the sins that we haven't seen. Do you
Plus,
think
we haven't seen all the resources yet. We've seen Pandora's box, but I think there's one more too, isn't there?
There's the Rock of Eternity, which has been leaked somewhere.
Oh, it has. I thought we only got one of them.
It's on an Imgur, I think. I can see if I can find it and see if I can get a screen share for you. It was a little the picture was a little hazy, but I managed to zoom into it. Roughly it's kind of like the Gauntlet, to be honest, but with a lot less of the awesome to it.
So slow build up. Okay.
Yeah, it's a lot slower than the Gauntlet, and it takes a lot more work to get going. But based on what we know, he wants to. He asked our user, this is Dan Upham, who's also going to be running the ROC in Windsor. What do you think is going to dominate the upcoming meta?
Well, I don't know if we'll see anything dominate. There's really nothing anymore that's an automatic win, must play. A couple things that you really have to be aware of that might be played. Probably, I think one thing you might see will be lanterns of all colors, particularly the yellow, and I believe you'll see the orange, definitely. I think those are the only ones you'll see as pure lanterns. Other ones you might see mixed. You'll probably see the Starfest Sapphire Ring. But the orange one, especially with the ability we have with the flexibility of Super Scroll plus even Engineer, with the orange lantern specifically says, give this thing a power action. Choose a power one of your guys can use. And the keyword there is can use, because Super Scroll can use anything he chooses. And Engineer can use anything she chooses. So if your guy has you're facing off a team that has a bunch of hypersonic, well, Super Scroll has hypersonic speed. Now power action, no one can use hypersonic speed. Things along that nature. But you think piece-wise, you'll keep seeing Proxima Midnight because there's no way to deal with that spear outside of having a piece with Invincible. So Super Scroll basically is one of the pieces that is best equipped to deal with her. The one advantage she gets is that she'll have more support than he will. And of course, you'll see Super Scroll and I think we'll still see.
Uh-oh. We might have lost our connection.
Parallax just on. Oh, hello.
We kind of lost connection after you said Super Scroll has the tools to deal with Proxima.
Oh, are we still? Oh,
we're back.
Okay. Proxima. Oh, okay. So I was talking about Proxima before I got cut off. So Proxima, we'll see her because her spear. There's just no way to really deal with it unless you have in. You look at you froze.
I froze now too. Oh boy. All kinds of connection issues. You froze. You froze. No, you froze. Oh boy. Oh boy. Love to find out where this is coming from. Uh-oh. Did we lose connection? Oh boy. Really hoping this isn't coming from my end. Sorry, folks, we had a little bit of technical difficulty in the middle of the episode here, the interview. I'm trying to get Daniel back on the show right now. But if you're watching on YouTube right now, by all means, get questions down below. Sorry, Dan. We're having some connection issues here, so I'm not sure if it's coming from my end or your end.
It seems better now, is it?
Yeah, it seems better now. You're coming in smooth, and we're still at Proxima.
Oh, okay. All right. So I think you'll definitely see Super Scroll, and you'll see Proxima. Proxima because there's just very little ways to deal with her spear right now. The only way to stop that spear from hurting you is to have Invincible. So ideally, one of the pieces she can most mess up would be Super Scroll. He's one of the few pieces that can deal with her, which is over and over again. He can choose Invincible, but she has a little bit of benefit because if he's choosing Invincible, he's not choosing Impervious or ways to guarantee to reduce damage. So you might be able to get through him, and especially because she gives you a lot more support options. She's so much cheaper than Super Scroll. Them changing Bill knocks him down a peg, but I've seen people still able to make him work. I'm not entirely certain we won't see him, but he'll still be there. We will definitely see Super Scroll. You have to build a team that, even if you're not going to use him, you really need to have a team that can deal with him. Yeah. Brother Voodoo seems to have made a comeback, but he's also seems to be up and down right now. You might see him, you might not. I was kind of surprised we didn't see more doctors in response to that. I think we've only seen really, in all the analysis Edward and I did, like one team play a doctor and make a top 8. And I don't think he played a Brother Voodoo. I'm pretty sure, there was a Super Scroll Brother Voodoo team that actually dodged the doctor. Than the one Corey result. But did everything I say about the lanterns get through too before we got cut off?
Yeah, we did get everything about the lanterns, and almost 100% of which I agreed with, with regards to the yellow and the orange for sure.
Yeah, I mean, with just looking at, and too, especially with Super Scroll. I mean, or Super Scroll and Engineer. Engineer at 90 points. You throw an entity on her and the Sapphire Ring, and you're looking at a piece that's just as annoying as Super Scroll to KO. Because you get your defense power from the entity, and you could choose, some stat to bump up. Her stats are low enough, you'll probably get some kind of bonus, even though they're not going to be on their first click. And I don't know the entities off the top of my head. I'm pretty sure if you put her on Parallax, or maybe even Ion, you'll get something good. And then you can choose your speed power, your attack power, your damage power, choose whatever you need to do. And you're looking at a situation where you could have a piece with the Mystic's team ability and shape change, and if you go from a ring, and then Impervious or Invincible from the damn entity, and then whatever power if you need, Running Shot, Pulse Wave, Charge, Super Strength, Flurry, Steel Energy, Charge, Super Strength, Battle Fury, because you've got, things Charge, Precision Strike, and Battle Fury, or Charge, Precision Strike, Exploit, ignore everything that's not invincible. There's a lot of different things that you can do with that. I do still think we'll see some entities, just because there's no way to deal with them at the moment, since they're not considered resources, none of the anti-resource stuff.
Yeah.
I'd like to think we'll see Tim Hunter, but I don't know that we will, because the only thing, I'm sure somebody else will think of something, but the only thing I could think of that was really abusive with him was too many points. If you did a White Witch and Tim Hunter, then every single turn you could shut off every modifier your opponent has and limit them to a single free action. But all they have to do is play a Green Lantern to shut that down.
Yeah.
So. But the way it works is basically for anyone who wants to try this and annoy their friends at home, have your White Witch here, Tim Hunter next to him. White Witch takes a power action to turn off modifiers. White Witch now has 1 action token. Tim Hunter says it's a free action. This person who has 1 action token, I'm going to copy all your powers. Now I'm going to take a free action and shut off all the free actions. Next turn, we have a White Witch with 1 token, Tim Hunter with no tokens. Tim Hunter says free action, copy your stuff. I'm going to take a power action to turn off modifiers. White Witch is taking the free action to turn off everything else, and then White Witch clears. Next turn, repeat step 1.
Jeez.
And then at that point, his last click is a bonus and not the thing you're shooting for.
Yeah, exactly. And that's one of those things about him too, is like that's kind of a sugar on top situation. But by the time you get into the higher level competitive play, you probably got a lot of guys going, I know exactly how much damage I have to deal with that guy to be not be a problem anymore, right? So.
Well, there is that, and then there's also if someone throws a white ring on him, there's unless you have a way to turn off the resource or do anything like that, he's going to get on that last click. And you shouldn't, if you're going to play Tim Hunter, don't shoot for that last click as a single thing. Don't sit there and push him. You know, he's a there's so much things he could do. You can play with the new Constantine to get 4 probs a turn. You could play him with you could play him with. There's so many mystical pieces I can't even think of it. So if you shoot him for that last click, then you're wasting his potential.
So mystical is going to make a comeback, basically.
I don't know that. Like I said, I don't know if we'll see Tim Hunter. I think that more like where we really seems to be going to right now is you don't really want to rely on one attacker. I've seen some of the teams that are doing well now have at least 2 attackers or 3. I think the team, I know we're going to do a recording tomorrow, but the last rock we reviewed, the team that won it had a good solid 3 to 4 attackers on it. It was Engineer plus Captain Marvel plus a Bat Cycle plus a Weasel.
Josh Ernest, yeah.
Yeah, plus something else. I can't remember what it is for the life of me. Oh, a 25-point Bizarro.
Yes.
Which Bizarro getting watch listed really, as far as I'm concerned, he's not going to change a thing. It's going to take away those tentpole teams where he's never going to die, but 90% of the time we were seeing him get played at like 25, 50 points and just being annoying piece to kill, and we'll still see that happen. So they didn't really knock him off the scene. They just changed him.
Yeah.
So yeah, at that point you've got a team that's got Bizarro as an attacker, plus Engineer as an attacker, plus Captain Marvel as an attacker, plus he had a Weasel on that force so that everyone could get an enhancement. And with that many attackers at that point, enhancement's so much better than Perplex because it just hits everybody. And the only thing he didn't really have was Prob, and Weasel even gave a limited form of that.
Yep. No. And the team stayed close. Was probably built close enough to stay close enough together with a character like Captain Marvel to keep those defenses nice and annoying, to say the least.
Captain Marvel gave everyone a 19 because no one had the Kree keyword, and then on top of that, the Bat Cycle would drop smoke and he'd get a 20.
Yeah.
He also had a Harley Quinn. Forgot about that.
Yeah. And she can be an attacker eventually too if you're if you're not paying attention to who she's pumping up, right?
Well, the way she's built, she should never make an attack. Jake built her to basically be a cop car with Perplex.
Yeah, and then with some really high stats, should something really 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 bad happen, because I've actually had a couple games where bad things happened and Harley Quinn became a beast.
I've only played against her once locally, and it was a guy who used her to, and the pudding was Deathstroke, and I think I was playing a Suicide Squad team, and I did get a Deathstroke, and then Harley became really annoying. Professor Zoom got her.
Yeah. Oh boy. And one of the common questions we have a lot with regards to fan questions, this didn't get asked specifically, but is there a style you prefer in the game with regards to building your teams? Do you generally try to go in one sort of direction that makes you comfortable, or do you work better just kind of playing with what would work well in the metagame?
I don't know. I like tent poles. I know that. It's something I tend to lean towards, and I think if you look at those teams I won with, they had clear and obvious tent poles. It's just something I like to do. I don't know why, but I also enjoy the generic swarm. I don't know if it's necessarily meta. It's just I like having the situation where it's a 600-point game and I've got 20 pieces on the board or something like that. That just makes me laugh. Generally speaking, the way I build teams, I don't know. I don't know if there's really. What I do is I look at the scenario and I just find something I want to play and I just start looking for things that work with that. And it basically depends on what I want to do with that team. If I think there was a couple weeks ago I wanted to play a T-Mat, so I decided to build around. Or no, I wanted to play my Black Lantern Zoom I just got. So I wanted to build around one of his keywords, and I took a look in Black Lantern. I didn't have enough stuff to make that work, and there was a no resource game, so I wasn't going to play the Black Lantern, so I didn't want to do that. So I ended up building around Monster and doing something with like T-Mac because I never played him. And I pulled out Mole Man because I was being a jerk, and I went from there. Um, Other times I'll just build something because I want to play it or it fits a scenario. I think the last team I just played, I played on Sunday. It was 400 points, no resources, no team base, and I played the Authority because I hadn't played any of those pieces. It's not because I thought they were anything better, it's just because I just wanted to try it. Um, but I didn't really answer anything you asked me. I just kind of talked. So let me
No,
see if I think if I give you a real answer here.
if you focus it just towards competitive play, then
If if it's competitive and I really want the prize, I I won't be the level of jerk I'm going to be at the convention, but I will go kind of hard. Um, I won't bring anything too bad, but I will start bringing things that are like really. I will try to optimize my team. I will try to maximize my actions. I will try to deny as many actions as you can get. Things along those nature. Um, Generally speaking, when I think the answer I gave to this a couple of years ago, I guess is the best thing I can apply. Generally speaking, if I'm playing or just playing locally, I don't play a lot of resources. I don't play a lot of the obvious strategies. I let other people do that because I've always believed that, we'll call it the Rocky parable. If as long as you're training in the mountains and you're always running uphill, then by the time you're on a level field with someone, you're in a much better place. So, I'll look at the things and I'll see how they'll work, and I might play them once or twice to get a feel from them, but then I'll be more determined to see how I can beat them without using them, so that if I ever do get a situation where I am using them, I know them and I know how to get around them or I know how to use them.
so I kind of like that idea of play without the things that are good, so that you know how to play against the things that are good. That
Yeah,
kind of
just basically, I see people. There's one local player, God bless him, he tries. He really does. He really wanted to play in Worlds, and he looked at all the things that were online, and he said, well, these are good because these people say they're good. And he would play them, and he would get smoked because he did not understand this why they worked. He looked at them. Someone told me these are good. I'm going to play them, but he didn't know why. He couldn't figure out that he had the position. That if you throw your piece out into someone's swing, you're going to get shot. You're going to lose your piece, and then your team's going to start to crumble.
yeah.
So you really the best thing you do in this game still is have have your positioning down. Learn the best thing. The first thing I ever tell someone when I learn this game, if you want to do good at it, is you got to learn the concept of swing, and you have to calculate it. If their Cyclops has a 10, I think the example I told someone is, let's look at Cyclops with a 10 speed running shot and an 8 range. He's got a swing of 13. But if someone's got TK out there, you got to add 8 to that, so then it becomes 21. He's got perplex, well now it's 22. He's got 2 perplexes, it's 23, so on and so forth. And you got to make sure you have to know exactly what he can do. And once you do that, you can manipulate things. I argue that the reason I won my second world title was because I used a bait piece and I just threw and let him throw himself at it while I set up the real striker. If he had ignored Brother Voodoo and gone right for my Ghost Rider, we would not have a Shriek right now. But because he went for the bait piece, I won. And you can do that because once you know someone's swing and what they're doing and how to position things, because sure, he could have gone after my Ghost Rider, but I still had my Scarlet Witch next to it, and he would have been really overextended, and it would have been dangerous for him. So maybe that's why he chose not to. I can't decide. But once you know swing, you can kind of start to manipulate outcomes in your favor. Sometimes people get really. It seems to be it's odd though. I've had people get really annoyed when I place figures one out of their maximum range. Sometimes, but I just consider that just good gameplay. If you want to win, it's just a solid strategy. Before you even sit a figure down on the thing, start counting. As soon as you sit down, look at your opponent's figures. See what their speed is. Start counting. Put dice down on the table, little tokens. As the maximum number you can do, and okay, well I can move up to here. And then when he moves, start thinking about what you're gonna do next turn. Not everyone can do that, but you should always be trying to think one turn ahead.
Yeah, absolutely. These are actually a lot of strategies I've started trying to tell people. Don't think about what's going to happen now. Think about what's going to happen now, and then your next turn.
Yeah, if you just get in a situation where you're reacting but not dictating, you're in trouble.
Yeah, if you're defending yourself, you're losing. I found it's an old wrestling/boxing thing we're always taught is don't drop the gloves, don't lose the defense, because if it's not there, they'll take it.
Yeah, and then there could be 100 games like that where one person is firmly in control, but then something insane happens and then they lose. That's just Heroclix.
Absolutely. Sometimes the dice work with you, sometimes they don't work with you, and I think that's really if you did everything you could and then the dice crapped on you, you can't go back and say, "Oh, I lost that game bad. I lost that game because I did everything I could and nothing could happen for me."
Yeah, I mean, people want to live by the super senses, die by the super senses. Last year at Team Worlds in the qualifiers, I went against a guy in the final round, and I was playing an Inhumans team, and he was playing Mentor and one of the Icon, I think, the robot that is gold and has running shot psychic blast. And I had done really well in that game. I killed his Icon. I got his Mentor down to almost his last click, and then Mentor stopped missing super sense rolls. And because Mentor stopped missing super senses rolls, I lost that game. So yeah, live by the super sense, die by the super sense.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that's all we have with regards to questions, Dan. If you have anything you want to mention, plug, talk about before we cap it off, now's your chance.
Oh, well, if you find my analysis intriguing, if you don't get tired of me hearing my voice, if I don't put you to sleep, you can always find me and Edward on the Quarry. If you ever want to have this situation where not just see that a team won, but hear why and get analysis from guys that we know this is what we do. We look at these teams, we'll sit there, we'll break it down, we'll even break down matchups. Why did this team beat this team? Even so, when we go to situations where if we think it was an upset, we'll tell you why we think it was an upset, how the other team could have won, a lot of different strategies to get. If you can get around to listening to it, you don't mind me sit there and I call it just vomiting up words, then hopefully you get something useful out of it and you can start to learn, teams. And, don't just copy, if you want, just take it and do something new with it. And I'm being a little bit of a hypocrite because my second World's Titles team I stole from an Origins team because I thought that team looked good. I'm going to play test with that. So here, I'm telling you, innovate, and I'm a hypocrite. Okay, see, I'm honest. And then my first World's team, it's like, oh, that looks good. I'm going to change one thing, and then that's my team. So.
Absolutely. Some of the best advice comes from hypocrites. Somebody once told me. Well, that's all we have for this week. Thank you very much for joining us. Thank you again, Dan, for joining us on the show. It's been a pleasure talking to you, and it's always good to hear from the best of the best.
Oh God, don't say that. That makes sense.
Hey, you're the first one who's done two Worlds twice in 2 different years. So, but until then, thank you very much for joining us, and for you guys joining us either live or in the archive, thank you for joining us. We'll hope to see you guys next week. We should be back on schedule on Sunday. Ooh, no, wait. This week, I will not be available Sunday to run the show as I am going to be participating in a couple local Rock Winamap events that are for qualifying to Windsor. One will be in Comic Warehouse at 20 Strathern Brampton, which is where I'm going to be judging. And then on the 22nd at 1022 Broad Street South in Whitby at Comic Book Addiction. So if you're planning on coming down there you're in the Greater Toronto area, join us for those tournaments. In the meantime, guys, just remember, practice makes your team better.